The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual guests. If you're a sensitive snowflake that may get easily offended, then turn this off immediately. If you want to hear the real truth about the gun culture, then stick around. This is the Armed Citizen Podcast. What is going on, my Ghost Squad? Welcome to the Armed Citizen Podcast Live. This is episode number 146. Today is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020. We are live, as always, on YouTube, so if you're out there in the live chat, make sure you say hello. We don't know that you're out there unless you say something throughout the show. If you have any questions, make sure you tag myself or someone here on the panel, and we'll try to get those questions answered if it's relevant to the conversation. If you're watching a replay or listening in podcast forms, the conversation doesn't have to end here. Go ahead and utilize those comment sections down below. Ask any questions, make any comments. Let's keep the conversation going that way. If you want to, you can always email to live@ghosttactical.us, or you can text or call in to the show on the Ghost Tactical hotline at 530-364-4678, and that is presented by our good friends Rod and Shelly Gates at the Gun Cleaners. So before we say hello to our guests, let's give YouTube a few minutes to send the notifications out, and let's say hello to everybody out in the chat that's out there. Once again, if you're out there, go ahead and say hello. If you're new to the channel, new to the chat, make sure you tell us where you're from. So let's go out there. It looks like gun-loving grandpa's out there. You've got Nighthogs out there, JMA, Jefferson Martial Arts. What's going on, homie? Carolina EDC Reviews, Mystic Guns. Hello, sweetheart. Grim 90, the Tactical Reaper. What is going on, Grim? 223 DMRs out there. Guns and Barbecue. What's going on, homie? Let's see here. Budget Guns and Gear Reviews. I think Mike is usually at work on Tuesday, but if not, I did send you a link. So if you're able to jump in, bud, come on in. I understand if you're working, no worries. But welcome to the chat at least. And Weston Probes out there. Gizzard, Gary, what's up? The Tactical Chicken. And Clover Tag's working double duties. The Gun Cleaners speak of the devil. Rod and Shelly are out there. What's going on, guys? Long time. We need to see. It's been almost a year. It's been a little over a year since we saw each other last. But hopefully we'll see you in Vegas. If not before then, maybe if we get down to Texas with some training with Fosse. I don't know if you guys have talked or not, but we'll see.
Tulsa. Yeah, maybe Tulsa.
That's right, Tulsa. He'll be there in November. They will be there. That's true. 402 Outdoorsman, D-Temp, Jason Stewart. Let's see here. Outsiders out there. Magic Mike's out there. Georgia Trucker, Joel Bateman, Leo's out there. Joe Ziola, Midnight Range TM. Patriot in the Dark, what's up, homie? I hope you got your email. I'll send an email back to you, so hopefully you got it. Jay Monty's out there. Patrick Hill, Southpaw RX, Floodlife's out there. JJ's out there. Wayne Barnhart's out there. Holy cow, we got it jumping tonight. If I miss you, Enrique's out there. If I miss you, I apologize. We'll try to get you out there, but let's say hello to our panelists, and from the great state of Texas, the tactical virus-aming leprechaun himself. What's up, Clover? How you doing, bud?
Well, what's shaking?
I don't know a whole lot. Shaking some leaves down, maybe. I don't know. You were working out in the yard, you know?
Yeah. Summertime blues or summertime work, I guess.
Something like that. I want to give a big shout out to our good friend, Miss Sarah Joy Albrecht out there. She's out there in the chat. Go check out her and Genevieve over at holdmyguns.org. Great organization doing some great work. So what's up, Sarah? And back on the show, it's been a short while since we've seen this dude all the way from the South Carolina himself, the Magic Mike. What's up, Mike Woodland?
Not too much, man. Just been busy trying to stay relevant, but trying to stay concurrent in this thing we know as competition shooting.
Yeah, I've been, if you guys aren't following Mike, he's always on YouTube, but he does a lot of stuff over at Instagram, M-W Tactical, Munitions Weapons Tactical, I think, over on Instagram. Go check him out because he does a lot of stuff where almost damn every weekend that you're shooting now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Every weekend I'm shooting, unless it's like a major match, a level 2 or higher match. And then that normally will go like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Thursday and Friday. But it just depends on the schedule. But pretty much I am shooting every weekend.
And how much are you able to practice with everything else you got going on during the week, or how much time are you trying to make to get ready for every weekend?
Oh man, I practice. I do 3 sessions a day. Because I was doing 4 sessions a day, but it's 30-minute sessions that I do of just dry fire.
Yeah.
Once a week, I hit the range up, and I stay out there for about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the amount of ammo I have. And then that Saturday, go to the range and see where I place. So for the last few months, I've been consistent, like in the top 5.
Nice.
But when I went to the South Carolina state match, I did get DQ'd at the state match.
What happened?
Coming out the holster, too fast on the trigger. And I just changed the spring in the gun, so it made the trigger lighter, and just coming out the holster is instinctive. You know what I'm saying? And I really didn't have a lot of time to practice with the lighter trigger. So, but I just went in like overconfident. That's all it was. And it was mainly all my fault,
There's a lesson to be learned there for everyone out there, especially, I mean, we've all jumped the buzzer sometimes. We've all done certain things that are not frowned upon, but it's a learning experience. And if you're out there, especially if you're new to competitive shooting, it happens. You just, like you said, you learn to fight on a different day and learn from the mistakes. We do have the El Presidente out there, Mr. George Washington. It's pretty nice to see the old president out there, old General Washington. What's going on? All right, so tonight's going to be a fun one. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on over the last month or so. It's been going on for a lot longer, but the conversation has been started about a month ago again. There's a lot of people out there that are very polarized on their ideals and beliefs of where America is, where we're going. It doesn't help, or maybe it does help, I don't know, that there's hopefully going to be an election in November for president. So you have all of this stuff happening, and there's people on all sides of this just unhappy with each other. And it is what it is. I think that's part of humanity, that you're never going to get everyone to kumbaya and like each other. But there seem to be some really hard lines that people are drawing in the sand as to what they think that Americans should or shouldn't be doing, or how we should or shouldn't be thinking, and what our belief systems are. And, everyone claims that we're the land of the free, but it doesn't always. They say that, and then they, 5 minutes later are saying something that kind of contradicts what they're saying. So we're going to have a discussion about what we think freedom is, and where we are in our country, and where we might be able to make some differences and move forward and kind of get back to at least a place where we could all be civil, and we could all at least somehow agree to disagree to a certain extent. Because like I said, we're never going to always agree. The first question I want to run, and let's just kind of start with Mike and say, one of the things that a lot of people have been saying, I've been hearing a lot, is about the Bill of Rights, and talking about freedom of speech, freedom to peacefully assemble, express yourself. Obviously, the Second Amendment and others that are out there. But as far as the Bill of Rights go, this is something that I've heard. What are your opinions? Is the Bill of Rights in particular, but much less the Constitution, in your opinion, is it like a living document, or is it kind of concrete into what the founding fathers originally meant?
Okay, so off of the question you just asked, in my personal opinion, that's a 2-part answer.
Okay, sure.
The first part is the wording of the Bill of Rights is exactly what it is. All right. So if it says this ink pen must be blue when you write down whatever and sign it, therefore the law says that ink must be blue when it hits the paper. All right. The downside to it is, or the other part of the conversation is, the people who are enforcing said laws, legislation, and anything associated to the Second Amendment or any other laws, people insert their bias into it. So now when you look at it, this is where the unfairness comes in at.
And you bring up a great point, because everyone's biased towards something, whether they want to admit it or not. You're right. I think that there is a personal bias. There's a personal opinion and all that. So I want to bring Clover in and say, and ask the same question. Is the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, a living document? Is it okay to reinterpret today versus 1770s?
No. It's a living document in the sense of it means the same thing today as it did back then. So it survived time, right? But living in the sense that it's fluid? No, absolutely not. And it's evident by the language that the founders and the framers used to write the thing. And language changes over time. We know this. But if you look at the language that they used, and I'm going to use the Second Amendment, for example, in this example. You take the Second Amendment. They didn't say the right to keep and bear guns. They didn't say the right to keep and bear cannons. They said the right to keep and bear arms. That to me, they had forethought that technology was going to improve. We weren't just going to always have muskets and cannons and sails on our warships. Things were going to evolve. Things were going to be invented. New weapons were going to be created. New tools of war, right? And so what do you call tools of war? What is the definition of that? It's arms, right? Today, it's the same definition. The arms race, military arms, right? It's the same exact word with the same exact definition as it was back when they wrote it. And so to me, that's evident. That's proof that it's, like I said, it stood the test of time. It was well written back in the day. And there's no wiggle room in it.
Yeah, there's Clint out there, a little quote from a great song by Janis Joplin. Freedom's just another word for nothing. I believe that's a Chris Christopherson wrote that, but freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And I do agree. And Budget made a great point. The Bill of Rights, especially, is concrete and the intentions of what they wanted and what they saw, in my opinion, what they saw this vision for America. Obviously, they left the process to amend it, and that is how it remains a living, fluid document as far as amending that. But the Bill of Rights, especially the foundation of what our forefathers wanted the country to be, is, I think it's concrete, because that's what our foundation is. That's who we are as a country. Now, over time, are there things that need to be changed and need to be adopted or adapted? Sure. But I think the idea of the first 10 amendments, and I mean, it's just one of those things where you talk about the First Amendment is freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, petition. Obviously, the second, we all know what that is. The third was not having to house soldiers. Then you've got freedom for unreasonable search and seizures, the right to due process, not have to self-incriminate yourself, a speedy and public trial. I'm trying to remember all off the top of my head. Right of trial by jury, freedom of excessive bail and unusual punishments. Other rights of the people, and then the 10th is, I believe, the powers of the states. Is that correct? Am I missing anything? Did I skip something? I don't know if I did or not.
I think you hit them all.
I think I hit them most. I might have. Anyways, but yeah, the Bill of Rights was the game plan, the blueprint of what our forefathers left an oppressive regime and government and society to say, we want to give the power to the people. And that is something that, more importantly, should never change. How the words are changed over time, the language, like you said, Clover, might change, and the meanings of what words mean. It might have to understand what the language was back then. But the concrete of who we are as a country it's something that I think should never change. So I want to kind of go into what's been going on lately, where you had the freedom of speech, the freedom to peacefully assemble, the freedom of expression, and everything that's kind of been going on in the last couple of weeks. Mike, I want to bring you in and say, at what point do we need to worry that the right to peacefully assemble, the right of freedom of speech, or the right of freedom of expression, is there a line at this point that we need to be worried that people are going to cross, or do we just let them go?
Well, that point of that line being crossed is right now. Because technically, when you look at it, whenever there is some form of congregation of people for whatever the cause is, once that line is crossed, it's a matter of people not agreeing with whatever the purpose is of that assembly, right? Whether right or wrong. So whenever you form a congregation like that in public, you have to submit paperwork to City Hall to get approved for that. And if you don't do it, to have the peaceful, the permit for the peaceful assembly. So if you don't do that, now this is when people are going to start getting arrested and everything, and the media is going to make it look like something is not, or word it differently in a sense of speaking. But overall, when you turn around and you look at it, when you see people doing the protests, you always notice there's always a line of officers out there as well. So are they keeping the peace, or are they just mitigating the refuge of what's about to come?
Well, and that's a great point, because there's part of me that says that they're there to keep the peace. But we all know that sometimes just the sight and the visual of having armed law enforcement there at a peaceful rally kind of almost antagonizes the rally or the protest itself, because, especially right now, if people are protesting police brutality or whatever, and having police there, could that not almost antagonize it to push it past a peaceful protest?
Well, right now, with what's going on in current society, with everything from the George Floyd killing to what's going on in the political arena, right? You in a bag of snakes right now, because how many people are looking at officers as, okay, you're hurting a culture of people, but yet you're going home and not getting prosecuted. But if somebody from a certain culture was to shoot that cop, their life is destroyed. You see what I'm saying? So if somebody is at a protest and they're looking at it from that standpoint, who's to say that officer might get hit with a stick or a brick or something thrown at them, or the car runs over them? You know what I'm saying? So I had this conversation with a reporter here in Columbia yesterday that, in all honesty, it is dangerous right now for reporters and police to be in any close proximity of a gathering of people, because there's a message that could be sold, but how do you actually handle that? And how do you protect from that?
That's a good point. Before we move on to Clover and get his, I want to send a shout out to Mandatory Carry, $2 super chat. It says hashtag keep fighting. We're going to try, brother. We're going to try. I appreciate you. Clover, I want to bring you in kind of and get your thoughts on what we're talking about with peacefully assembling, especially with the sight of armed law enforcement. At what point is it smart or not smart to have law enforcement and maybe just not come to some of these? I mean, do we need them there, or what do you think? Oh, we might have lost Clover.
No, he's muted. He's just muted. He probably forgot that.
Yeah, I was muted. It, I think it depends on the cause. It depends on the crowd. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, right? And so hopefully there's somebody paying attention, whether it's, somebody at City Hall or, police commissioners or police chiefs or somebody high up that assesses the situation and is fair about it, and, there's nothing wrong with there being a buffer there. There's nothing wrong with, with having some type of security there. Anytime you have a festival or a fair on the courthouse square, you have law enforcement officers that work those, because kids can walk out in the middle of traffic, or, things can happen. So, a large congregation of people, concerts, for example, they have, off-duty police officers for security there. It's just large groups of people. It's not a bad idea, because, things can go south and escalate quickly too. And so having a presence there is more of a de-escalation move, I think, than anything. It's more of a deterrent to say, you know, hey, we're here, we're watching. We don't care what you do, just keep it in bounds, you know.
Yeah, Philo out there says, he's talking about law enforcement at these protests and rallies. Said they're there because someone told them to be. They aren't doing anything because someone told them not to. None of it is up to the actual police. And I have a tendency to agree with that as far as when it comes to gathering.
Oh, yeah, the individual officer. Yeah, no. I mean, for volunteer stuff, my example of the concert, that's all off-duty officers that volunteer. You know, they don't volunteer, they get paid for that, but you know what I mean. But no, like if they're on duty and, you know, there's a rally, yeah, it's the chief or the commissioner or whatever that says go do this. So it's not like they have a choice either way. That's why I said it, you know, hopefully whoever is over that department or whatever is making wise decisions.
Yeah, I want to go back to Mike here in a second, but another $5 super chat. Thank you for the cause. I appreciate you very much. And what I want to talk about real quick before I come back to Mike is very briefly, when I set up the 2A rally a year or two ago here in Little Rock, when I did the permit to be at the Capitol building, we had to turn in an approximate number that we're hoping for, the max number, and what we thought the minimum number would be, because for every X amount of people on the Capitol, there has to be one Capitol Police there. So they had to kind of get an estimate of what we thought was going to show up and all that. So, yeah, I mean, they by law, at least at the Capitol, and I'm sure everywhere else, there's going to be a gathering. There's going to have to be some sort of security to hopefully keep it in check, but who knows? Mike, I know you said that you agree and disagree. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, basically, when you turn around and you look at it, it pretty much comes down to what we said about the Bill of Rights. Who's governing said what area? Okay, so just to put it out there where the goats can get it, it's nothing more than if it's a large group of black people, people are more fearful for whatever reason. But if it's a larger group of white people, it's not as fearful. But you'll see more cops at a gathering for people of color versus, you know, the white populace.
I hate to say this, but I think that is fair and true. I would like to think that wasn't the case, but I would agree. At least where I'm at in Arkansas, I would say that's probably a little more true. Now, we had, about 2 weeks ago, there was an Antifa march in about 45 minutes from here. Why they picked this town in Arkansas, I have no idea, but literally they had Antifa leadership from like Michigan, Illinois, California here. They were dropping off bricks.
Yeah, they was recruiting. They was recruiting. Yeah. That's all that was.
Yeah, but there was a lot of bricks being dropped, pallets of bricks in random places, and the police, as soon as they saw them, they'd pick them up, but there were piles of rocks. It was really weird. So there was about 200 to 300 Antifa on this rally, this march, and this town that it was in. And I'm stealing this from Clover because he said this a while ago, but I love the quote. He said, they thought that rooftop Koreans were bad. Wait till they meet rooftop rednecks. And there are a lot of rednecks in Arkansas. So apparently down the main road that this march was going to happen, all along the route, there were people with pickup trucks and just sitting there waiting. And it ended up being a very peaceful rally. They marched, they did their thing. Everything was by the book. Nothing happened. There were no rocks, no bricks, nothing on either side. Nothing happened. So it turned out to be perfect as far as a peaceful protest. But Wayne out here brings up a question. He says, there is a distinct difference between a protest and a riot. And I think that is true. But at what point does it become a riot? Do riots just happen, or do they start out possibly? I'm going to start with Clover on this. Do riots start out possibly as a peaceful protest that turn angry, or do riots just happen?
Absolutely, because you know what happens is you have people out there with good intentions, right? They're peacefully assembling, and they're their right to protest and all that kind of stuff. And what happens is you get, and we know this, we know that the most extreme in any situation is a very, very small percentage, right? Whether you're talking right, left, whatever the cause may be, the extremities of those, the ones that are going to riot, the ones that are going to be violent in some way or another, is a very, very small percentage. So what they do is they infiltrate a larger crowd, and you're going to have people that jump on that bandwagon once they start the commotion rolling. And a riot is meaning they're damaging property. There's damage to life, limb, or property of some sort. That's basically a riot. And all it takes is a brick or two here and there, one person in a crowd of 100 people, and then you're going to have 20 or 30 people that are going to jump in. Well, it's okay for him to do it. I'm going to follow suit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mike, what do you think? I mean, and I tend to agree with, I think everything, but I also think the positive, I try to see the positive in everything. I would like to think that most riots start out with good intentions of being a peaceful protest, but what do you think? Do you think that there are some riots that are just intended to be angry from the get-go, or do they kind of make it that way from a peaceful protest, in your opinion?
Look at the history books. Now, just like Clover said, a gathering of people. So by definition of the law, a gathering of people is considered a mob, right? So now once you start targeting a certain group of people, regardless of color, right? Now, is that really a riot or is that a lynching, right? So the terminology of how it's used is how it's going to be categorized in today's society versus the amount of force is going to be brought to that attention, of that conflict, So even when you turn around, if you open up the history books, right, and there's a lot of history that's coming out that a lot of people did not know about, So once again, like when I was younger, my grandparents talked to me about what was going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma back in the day, which was called Black Wall Street, right? So the background of the story is a city of Black people who brought the community together, had their own sufficient way of living off of their own economy, off the Black dollar. But supposedly the town over, it was a couple people that would come over to the Black city, borrow money. And a lot of people didn't like that. They came in and tore that town up, dropped a bomb on it from an airplane.
An airplane, right?
Yeah, sure, that's terroristic acts right there. But once again, is that a riot, a lynching? Because what was the form of the protest, right? How can you define all that, right? So even when you turn around and you look at it, the terminology is going to change depending on what side of the fence that you're looking at.
Absolutely. Sarge, obviously law enforcement, thank you for all that you do for your community and everyone. But Sarge says agitators hide amongst the peaceful protesters and ruin it for everybody. And we've seen this on both sides of the aisle, if you want to call it that. We've seen a peaceful 2A rallies where there are people out there hiding amongst the 2A supporters trying to agitate this. I'm assuming that there are going to be people in every large gathering. There's going to be someone that tries to sabotage and infiltrate these protests. So yes, the problem is unless you're able to pick these individuals out, they're doing their job. If for no other reason, they are creating chaos in a peaceful protest, if you want to call it that. And that's where sometimes it turns into other things because the people are there to do that exact thing. They're there to strike that fire and create chaos. And that's tough.
Yeah. Well, I think the people that are there for the noble cause, I mean, unequivocally, they are not the problem. Mm-hmm. I think what happens is, again, you've got that small subset of agitators, and then you've got people that are there because it's the bandwagon thing to do, right? They're there because they want to impress their friends. They're there because they want to impress their girlfriend. They're there because they want to seem like they're woke, whatever it might be. They're there because the media told them they needed to be. They're there because they're getting paid. All right. There's a lot of different reasons for people to be there other than they're invested in the cause, right? The people invested in the cause are the percentage of people that give absolutely no trouble. But it's the people that come in that are uneducated, unmotivated, uninvolved. They're just there to be there for whatever personal reason it might be that the agitators are able to swing. So that's the section that I don't believe for a second that the people that are 100%, for the cause, behind the cause, fighting the good fight on a day-to-day basis. I don't believe for a second that an agitator gets to a person like that and gets them to start throwing bricks. I don't believe that for a second. So, the question becomes, how do we identify the agitators? I mean, when you're dealing with law enforcement or whatever, like we're talking about, that's there. I mean, how do you identify an agitator before the actual rioting starts? It's difficult.
It is difficult, and I think that's exactly what the problem is the people that are at these protests, these rallies, whatever, are there for a specific reason. The ones that are there that are truly behind that cause, whatever that cause they're talking about, I think you're right. They're not going to be agitated. They're not going to be shaken from their mission by someone in the crowd. The problem is this is my opinion, the number of true believers of that cause, kind of what you were saying, Clover, in a mass group is probably very, very small. So unfortunately, the vast majority of the people are looking for trouble sometimes. They're not there for the cause. They're there for whatever the reasons that you just gave, which I tend to agree with. There's a multitude of them. But those are the ones that are almost looking to get agitated. And that's the problem because especially when we talk about the media, what's going to sell newspapers, magazines, whether it's online or whatever, or get you to watch the latest news? It's a fight at a peaceful rally. I mean, that's sexy to the media. So there have been people that will say that even sometimes the media plants people to agitate things just so they can get a good story. I don't know if that's true, but it would make sense to me. Real quick, dang it. Did I just lose it? I want to go up to Sarah had a great, here we go. Said that their police department hosted an open mic in their parking lot during the peaceful protest for the community to share stories of discrimination and hope. And, I think that's great. I think that the conversation needs to be had. I want to bring this to Mike because the sad part of this is that this conversation still needs to be had, though, is it not? That's the sad part of this, is 200 some odd years into our existence as a country, we're still having to have this conversation. And in your eyes, is this conversation ever going away? Is this going to be something that the race issue, is it going to be something that haunts our country forever?
It will not haunt this country forever once we put action to it, because of the fact the same conversation we're having is the same conversation that was taking place in 1950. Right. So what is the reason why we can't push forward? What is the reason why there's fear of making everything equal? In my personal opinion, if you understand money and everybody likes money in some way, form, or fashion, if you truly make it fair across the board where color is not an issue, this economy will be booming so much. But once again, once you look at how our nation is geared for making money, why is the prison complex and targeting certain group of people, making criminals out of people for no reason, still in existence today? Right. So if you want to make change, the way it has to start right now is you have to put something in jeopardy that's going to wake people's eyes up. So for instance, if you become a police officer, if that police officer carries a gun on his job, All right. And this right here is far-fetched and it might come true. You never really know. Right.
It's the conversation. Go for it.
It's a conversation. Yeah. So if you're a police officer and you carry that badge and that gun to work every day, put insurance on that police officer. All right. Now, if that police officer shoots somebody, his livelihood is at stake. Right. So now, because we got a system in place, you're going to make a decision that's going to be based off of the survival of your family now, not the survival of the person who you're looking at, point your gun at, or you're upset with. You're thinking about the survival of your family now. So it could be a start, but the conversation has been going on since 1950, right? Yeah. Companies that keep saying, oh, we feel your pain. We're doing this, we're doing that. Okay. Now put your money where your mouth is. Make change happen. Right now, a lot of people might not like what I'm about to say here.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't care. But the whole thing is with Kaepernick. Kaepernick was taking a knee for police brutality. All right. It wasn't about the flag because it was somebody from special operations that told him take a knee. When I was in the military,
he was sitting at first, and a spec up said, "Hey, maybe kneeling would be better than sitting." Absolutely,
yeah. So when you turn around and you look at it, when I was in the military doing funeral details, right? By being in charge of that funeral detail, I had to take a knee to present that flag to a family member, right? I didn't bend over. I took a knee and presented that flag. So was that disrespectful? No, because it's military customs, right? So now we're going to play this and turn it around because of who was who. No, fair is fair, right? And once we get rid of the nonsense and the craziness of it all, the conversation has been going on since 1950. Let's stop having the conversation. Now let's put motions into action, all right? Absolutely. If it was so quick, after George Floyd died, a week later, they was talking about police reform. 1950, we was talking about civil rights. 2020, we are still talking about civil rights, right? So now let's do the math here. How hard is it to put something into place that will make it whereas we can put all this behind us and move forward as a people? Because the only thing, the riots and the protests that's taking place today, only thing we're asking for is equality and transparency. That's it.
Yep. Clove, before I go, C4 Defense Sarge out there says we've had 3 protesters locally that went off without a hitch. A counter protester was arrested for causing disturbance, but that was it. And I think that that's probably the vast majority of the protests that have been going on across the country. I think most of them have been respectful. They've been, what they're there to do is to have a conversation just like this, to bring purpose to life to a certain extent and make changes where they need to be made. But I want to bring Clover in and say, do you think there's something that we can do as a country? And it's not just maybe the race or police brutality, but in general, is there a way that you see our country ever kind of coming more together in the near future? What steps have to take place for that to happen?
I believe that except for in pockets, I don't believe that it's as far apart as what most people want to make it out to be. That's first of all.
Okay.
I just don't. Now in certain pockets, yeah, okay. And then that's going to be, because why is that? And I just put something out there in the chat answering or talking to Andrew out there about this. So why is that? So why is racial issues, if you will, why do they seem to be a bigger problem in certain sections or certain pockets? Socioeconomic issues, plain and simple. Mm-hmm. We have to work smarter, not harder. We have to work smarter. I think we worked harder and dumped a lot of money into education and a lot of money into low income housing and certain things that it's money wasted because money is not going to fix the problem. It's gonna take attention. You're gonna have to spend attention on it, not money. And there's been a lot of studies done where you can move something like if you restructured the welfare rolls, and I'm going to use weird terms because I'm not an economist or a politician that knows all this terminology.
No, but I did state him at
you get what I'm saying when I say the welfare rolls, the way that all that works, because I don't know personally. But if there's economists that say if you restructure that, you can actually restructure it, increase the budget for it by 4%, and that would, according to studies and everything they've done, reduce like gang violence by like 80% in some of these places. Right?
Yeah.
By spending 4% more money, but it requires the restructure of everything, right? Not just throwing money at it. Everything's got to be restructured first, throw a little more money at it, and you kill that. Well, why do you kill that? Because there's more money in the home. There's vouchers for those kids to go to other schools. And we're talking about poor neighborhoods more than we're talking about a whole black, white, Hispanic, whatever race you might be. Heck, I live down the road from a trailer park. South Central LA ain't got nothing on that trailer park down there, and that's all white folks. So, there's a direct correlation there is between income disparity or, low income or whatever, and this, I don't want to say a cycle of violence, but a cycle of perpetual, what would be the word? Poorness or whatever, right?
No, I hear you. Sarah out there wants to know from Mike. You're talking about changes need to make and all that. She says, what kind of changes would you obviously like to see?
I was actually writing her right now as I said.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. So the first change that we have to make is we have to get people to get to the voting boxes. All right. So in order for change to happen, you have to vote. All right. So once we get these career politicians out of these seats, because look at the politicians today, and I'm talking about Senate and Congress, not a local level.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those people, well, not a lot of them, some of them from the civil rights era are still in the seats today. All right. Yeah. So if the president have term limits, why doesn't Congress and Senate, have term limits?
I'm all for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So now the other thing, when you sit there and you look at it from the standpoint, and let's work from the bottom up. Okay. So now, Clover had mentioned the same thing about gang violence. He mentioned about the welfare program. And then he mentioned something else about he was talking too fast. I couldn't write it down fast. But so now
education.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's back this up a little bit. Okay, so now when you turn around and you look at stuff, everybody's talking about defunding the police, and I think that right there is taken out of content across the board. When they're saying defunding the police, the only thing they're saying is don't make it a military force, because why does a police force need an MRAP? You know what I'm saying? Especially when you got certain other law enforcement agencies that have that equipment in there, right? So it should be talking amongst the law enforcement agencies. I mean, that's what we did in the military. If I needed help in a certain area, we would call the Marines, But now when you turn around and you look at other things in these communities, if we want to reduce crime, we want to get people off of welfare, and we want to try to keep people out of jail and truly reform people, it all starts in the court system. Because basically, when you turn around and you look at it, this law was written back, once again, 50s and 60s, that suppresses a certain group of people, right? Because if you can get the man out the house, the woman will be put on welfare. She'll get the special assistant housing where it's based off of her income. But if that man is found living in her house, she's going to get evicted, right? But that man can go to jail, get a felony, and he's looked down upon forever, even though he's probably made a change. And the way the system is geared, it's you keep beating a dead horse, and that's the way it is across the board. So when we say systematic racism, this is where it all starts at, in the court system, because you're beating down a dead horse to keep a certain group of people down with no true reform.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great point, because I think that when people start using, and it's sad, but the reoccurrence of the word systematic racism, I don't know if the vast majority of people watching the media, watching the news, truly understand what they mean by systematic racism. Mm-hmm. It's not saying that there's a system out against Black people or Hispanics or poor people in general. It is saying that it is not necessarily towards one group. It is a societal thing that, and there's a lot of people out there that, and Bud is talking about, it's a, I don't know, this has something to do with it. Let me try to find it. He said it was a, here we go. A poverty culture has to, I hope I didn't cover Mike's face up, but I'll get it off here in a second. Poverty culture has to do with a lot with it too. He grew up on welfare and food stamps, starving at the end of the month, while others in his age group and those same circumstances are still there. And I think what it comes down to is it almost feeds on itself. Okay. I think that if someone grows up a certain way, it's going to go one of two ways. And like he keeps on going, he says again, clawed their way up and out and went farther and worked his way through college and law school and as a magistrate and all of that, talking about, it can go one of two ways. Either you say, I don't want this life anymore, or I don't want this life for my child, so I'm going to do something to get out of the situation. Or it's almost kind of like being institutionalized from the beginning of your life. You're used to life being a certain way, and at what point does it not become just normal? Like, there's no other way out of this. I might as well just get used to it. And that's kind of where it goes. It's either you crawl and get your way out of it, or you just accept it. The problem is that people shouldn't be put in those situations to begin with. And I think that that's what we're talking about with systematic racism. Is it's not necessarily a race thing. It is probably an income thing. I want to say someone who is being put in a sociological and monetary position in life to start out. They're almost taught that this is your life. And I can't speak for this, Mike. I want to bring you in, and Clover, feel free to jump in, guys. I mean, this is just a conversation, but
yeah.
We're talking about gangbangers and all of that has been brought up. Well, how many of these kids growing up, whether they're white, Hispanic, Asian, Blacks, whatever, grow up in an environment where gangs are prevalent? That at some point, that's what people strive to be, because it gives them brotherhood. It gives them a sense of purpose. Not that they're going out trying to commit crimes, but the gang is the best thing they got to choose from in life. It's either that or something very bad. And the problem is I hate the fact that there are kids growing up that feel like these are the only 2 or 3 options in their life. So that's what needs to change, in my opinion, is we need to figure out a way to give kids hope from the very beginning, saying, I don't care where you started from. Mm-hmm. You know, the whole American dream thing is you can be anyone or anything you want to be. But unfortunately, that's not necessarily true. I mean, it is if you really, really get lucky, but some people need a lot of extra breaks. And that's what's sad to me. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, you also, I mean, outcome is not guaranteed, right? But there's something bigger than that has to be, I think, instilled in when you're talking about children or whatever, is that, you know, in order to achieve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you have to utilize your freedom in a responsible manner. And I think that's what, I mean, the first thing that they do is they fail to see the freedom that they have. The second thing they do is they fail to utilize said freedom, which is the definition of liberty, by the way, is to utilize freedom in a responsible manner. And then I totally agree with you, because I know people, let's just say. I've talked to tons of people over my lifetime. And I know people that have broke the cycle, and I know people that are continually in the cycle and a part of that cycle. One stark factor and this is why I preach to people that you need to be working in your communities and you need to be, doing other things. And this is where, church families and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a big church goer and all this other stuff. I'm just saying there is a place for that. And this is where church families and other things can be of huge benefits and clubs and different things like that. But the stark difference between the ones that perpetuate the cycle and the ones that break the cycle is the ones that break the cycle typically have mentors, role models. They don't have to be parents. I know people that have lost their father when they were very, very young, and they had an uncle that stepped up. They had a neighbor that stepped up. They had a pastor that stepped up, a deacon in the church that stepped up, right? And filled that role enough, that they were able to break the cycle. And then, but on the flip side of that, I know people that have had a father in the home, and it works the same way with the mother. You can flip this around either way. It's a vice versa thing. But on the flip of that, again, you have to be aware, active, and you have to be, what is the word? Where you're a proponent of or something of, raising that kid right, I guess. But I know parents that are in the home that are, whether it's single parent or even two, that are worthless, and they're there. So the whole father in a home thing, I get in a broad sense. But if the community would step up, that I don't think the father in the home or the mother in the home, if you want to flip it around, I don't think that that's as big an issue as what people think it would be. I think a lot of people want to put that off. I don't have time, it's not my concern. It's none of my business. It's whatever it might be. Right. And so the put off of that is, well, there used to be fathers in the home. Well, why don't you step up and go down to your neighbor that's a single mother and take that kid out to toss the baseball around for an hour every week or something, and just talk about life while you do it. Well, you can't find an hour a week to go do that. Then what does that say with what kind of a person you are?
Okay. So now, before you go any further, Ghost.
Yeah, go for it, man.
And like I said, you and I have had conversations for 3, 4, 5 hours on the telephone. All right. And then when we actually met in person, I believe you can actually tell if I flip that switch.
Oh, yeah.
I can live on the other side of the tracks.
No doubt.
Okay?
No doubt.
Now, one thing I can say is the way I grew up, because I grew up in Newport News, Virginia, which was on the rougher side of the tracks. Mm-hmm. That's why it's easy for me to turn it off and on. But if my father wasn't in my life like he was, you probably wouldn't be talking to me today. I probably won't be alive today.
You and your uncle.
And my uncle. All right. Yeah. Because of the fact there is a disconnect when you look at it. Whereas if I don't know where my next meal is coming from, or when I step out the house, just walking to the Circle K or the 7-Eleven, I can get arrested, get drugs planted on me. That's the end of my life right there. All right. So both parents are needed when it comes to raising a child. All right. Because a little girl is going to look up to her father as this is the mold of the man who I need to be with for the rest of my life. A little boy is going to need his mother because the mother is going to show that little boy how a woman should treat him. All right. So
and how he would treat a woman.
Exactly. So now that's the mold of society right there. All right. Now, I do have a lot of friends who are single parents, but it's not in my place to jump in the role to say, hey, let me get your son and let me take him here. Let me take him there. because I don't know the path of that father in that child's life.
Sure.
Now, what if that father lives in a different state and he just doesn't have the means, financial means, to go see that child every weekend, right? Or every month or for the summer, whatever the reason may be. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, that father in that child's life is very important because that's going to be the decisions that kid makes for your parents. Whatever they say to you as a kid, that is the number one rule in your mind instantly. So as a child, if your parents sit there and tell you the sky is orange, regardless if it's blue, and you go to school and everybody, man, the sky is blue. No, the sky is orange. You're going to defend that to the end of life.
It told me it was orange.
Yeah, because your parents told you that, right? So the message coming from your parents is going to stick longer with you than somebody who is not considered family, right? So the words that I hold on more to in my life is from my father and my grandparents. I value what they said. But once again, if my father wasn't in my life like he was, I would have took a wrong turn somewhere and I wouldn't be here today. You know, so a parent can be in that child's life in or out of the household. But we as a community, we got to stop using the courts as a tool against the other parent, because if we want change to come about, we have to start with ourselves. It doesn't all fall on the government. It starts within ourselves, you know.
Fantastic.
And when it starts within ourselves, it has to start with the conversation, but action has to come after that. We can't just keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. Action has to be taken. And whether that action is making a law or people saying, hey, we need to stop spending our money here or there, or we go to the courts and we're going to rally for whatever, action has to happen. And change has to be the fulcrum of that formula.
Well, I agree that there definitely needs to be family law reform, without a doubt. I mean, the family law is so outdated too at this point that it's unbelievable.
Yes, that's very true. And I'm a victim of that myself because I'm still dealing with my child in court. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? I'm in a society, whereas I'm in the deep South dealing with an interracial issue with a child. So when you turn around and you look at it, I'm dealing with the judge who is an older white male who doesn't even really consider me to be a human. So that's basically what I'm looking at right now.
And the sad thing is we all kind of know this has been something that's been talked about forever, that if you're going through a divorce and you talk about child custody, in order for the father to basically gain custody of that child, you have to be able to prove that there is something dramatically, fundamentally wrong with the mother. Whether or not that's the case or not, even though the father might give them a more stable home, a better environment, more income, whatever it is, it seems like the male, and no offense to women out there, but the male in this situation is behind the eight ball right off the bat. And I don't know why that hasn't changed.
I can tell you,
yeah, go for it.
Oh, I thought you was going to say you didn't know why that is, and I'm like, oh, that's simple money.
I don't know why.
Typically, the man's going to be out working or whatever, and the state can siphon some child support bucks here and there.
And you know that's tax-free money for the mom also. When you pay child support, they don't pay taxes on that money. That's all tax-free.
Interesting. All right, so we could go down about 27 different rabbit holes here. One of them is going to be that we're going to talk about briefly is the welfare system. And you brought up the welfare system, and I think maybe not all three of us at one time, but I've had the conversations with both of you about the welfare system. And I agree with what you were saying out there, Mike, is I don't think that the welfare system needs to go away by any means. It is going to be helpful to some people. But I believe that in order for someone to make something of their lives and force themselves to go and work hard, I do believe that the welfare system needs to have some sort of limits, whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year, whether it's a month, whatever that is. I think 6 months or 3 months is something that says, like, here, we're going to help you out. We're not going to allow you to go down that dark hole. We're going to help you for the time being, but you're going to have to help yourself eventually. And I think that is something that the discussion out there has been phenomenal. These are very controversial subjects, and we're not, like I said, we're not all going to agree, but I think being able to have a very good conversation and be cordial and being civil towards everyone has happened tonight, which is great. But real quick, and like I said, I'll talk to both of you. Clover, welfare system. What do you think that could be done on the welfare system to help people out, whether they want it or know it or not? In
a broad sense, and then I'll elaborate. A wise man once said, "Make people uncomfortable in their poverty," and I do agree with that. If people are comfortable in their poverty, then it counters the incentive, right, to pull themselves up by the bootstrap, to actually attempt to help themselves. It creates a situation where they can come more complacent, or like one of you said, I don't know which one, talk about some people get in that cycle and they just give up, right? Well, if you're comfortable in it, it's easy to give up, right? So I think it's conducive to that type of a thing. I think the notion, there's quite a few things that have evolved in the welfare system over the years that I don't agree with and I think are stupid. First of all, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. That's first of all. So if I go into Walmart and I buy a package of Hubba Bubba and I buy a 20-ounce Dr. Pepper, I pay sales tax on that. Okay, if homeboy or girl uses their EBT card, they can buy it. Why? Why am I paying taxes on something? Because it's considered a luxury item or whatever, but they can get it on their EBT card because that's supposed to be for like food, for necessities, for food. So either it's classified food or it's not classified food. That's first of all, make up your mind. And I'm not advocating either way, either whether they roll back the sales tax for us or they tell them they can't have it, whichever way. But I think there needs to be a consistency there. That's number one. Number two is, what happened to commodities? What happened to commodities? I can remember going down once a week or whatever it was with my great grandmother, and she was on Social Security. She was elderly, is why she got commodities. But I can remember going down and getting commodities, the big blocks of cheese, the big blocks of butter, the produce, all of that stuff, right? What happened to commodities? And so if we would roll back this junk to where you could use your EBT at a fast food joint, really, when there's people working 3 jobs and can barely afford to buy beanie weenies for their kids 3 meals a day, and really, and these people get to eat at the local catfish place or Burger King or wherever every night. That doesn't make any sense. That's not fair. So there needs to be a level playing field, is my opinion on it, and there needs to be some level of discomfort with it, right? We need to make sure people are taken care of. And I'm not saying, do anything that's dangerous to the, to the person where the kids are going to starve or something like that. Right. But here's the other thing. If you take away a lot of the junk, right, and you go to something like commodities, or you say, okay, well, junk food, potato chips you can't have. Wasn't it Michelle Obama not that long ago, not to play political politics, but every first lady has their campaign, right? And hers was like childhood obesity and crap, right? Absolutely. Well, she should be the poster woman for saying, okay, people on welfare don't need all this junk food. So if you went to commodities, you went to where you were able to get normal, regular food that you could fix, then that's also a skill set, because your people are going to have to learn to cook. Right. And that's a skill set that you're building. You're not just building that for the parents, but you're building that potentially for the kids as well, for them to be able to self-sustain and feed themselves, right? I've only got a package of hamburger meat and a little bit of seasoning and a can of this and a can of that. What am I going to do for a meal tonight? Because we're lower economic level or poor or whatever. Well, they've got the knowledge. Well, I can make, hamburger patties with gravy or whatever it might be.
Salisbury steak or
Right.
whatever.
Exactly. And then the level of discomfort thing, I go back to this and I talk about it all the time. So there's been 2 times, one when I was very little, one when I was older, that we were in the welfare system. Now, we didn't get a whole lot compared to other people out there that were, I say a lot of people game the welfare system, unfortunately. So there's a lot of fraud that needs to be cleaned up as well. But I go back to that, and I go back to the old school monopoly money system, not the little card where, depending on how well people are looking, is that a debit card or is that a welfare card, right? But the actual monopoly money, the colored pages of money you got to tear off and give people. And they claim that there was fraud or this, that, and the other. But I'll tell you one thing that there was with that, and I can tell you this from personal experience, is the uncomfort in your poverty was there when you walked up to a register and you had to take out that monopoly money to pay for something, because that was embarrassing.
No, I hear you.
I agree. I agree with that as far as being embarrassing, because I had a grandparent that was on the welfare, and she used to give me the money to go to the grocery store because she was too proud to do it. So that's what the job of the grandchildren was for one grandparent in that regards. But when you turn around and you look at the welfare system, once again, you got to start off with the history, because if you don't know what its intent was, it's going to repeat itself over and over again. But then how the welfare system started to where it is, 50, 60 years ago to where it is today, right? What was the intent and how did it go? And now how did the politicians use it to their advantage?
Sure.
Right? So it was made specifically for a group of people to get out of hardship. It wasn't designed for another group of people. Right.
It was never meant to be a way of life,
exactly. Yeah. So now when you turn around and you look at it, how can we use this to our advantage? Oh, well, we'll give you welfare. We'll help you and your children out, but the man can't be in your house. You know what I'm saying? You got to get the man out of the house in order for you to get this way of living, and we'll even help you with a place to live. All right. So even when you turn around and you look at it like that, it's just the system using its tools against you, which goes back to where's the reform at, right? Because it's easy to say, pull up your bootstraps and get busy. But some people cannot take that first step because of the rules that are in place by the system that's going to keep you down. All right. So what I've always said when it comes to any form of government assistance with welfare, you need to put a term limit on it. Depending on your situation is determining how long you're going to get that assistance.
I couldn't agree more with that right there. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. So, and I said the same thing, even dealing with child custody and support. If one parent lives with their parent, okay, and they do this in Virginia, we'll give you 6 months to find your own place. If you don't have your own place in 6 months, we'll revisit it and we'll make a determination what we're going to do then. You see what I'm saying? So that right then and there, that tells you, oh man, I got to get up, I got to get active, and I need to figure this out.
Or make room for my child.
Exactly. So now if you do the same thing with welfare, right, it's going to force you to get out there and find a job. You know what I'm saying? Not just the bare minimum, but a job that's going to, hey, I got this car payment. I got this child I got to take care of. I got to eat every night. Okay. I can't afford to go hang out, with my friends or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? But let all the rules stay in place right now with welfare. Just put a term limit on it. That's how you're going to correct it in itself, or it's going to start correcting itself.
And I think tier it as well, right? Because here's the thing, you put this in place and it's kind of like, and I don't know, I don't think I've ever been on unemployment. So if anybody's been on unemployment, whether you two on the chat or somebody in the YouTube side of things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just coming from people I know probably, but this is coming from people that have told me this. So again, I'm not claiming that this is accurate. you guys that have been through it validate it. But they told me that when they were on unemployment, they had to apply for jobs. They had to show that they were doing stuff. And I know that owning a business, I would have people come in and ask, was I applying? And they would ask if I was hiring, and I would say no. And they would ask if they could fill out an application anyway. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because to keep my unemployment, I have to show that I've filled out an application. Now, again, this is stuff people told me. I've never been through that system. I don't know. But let's take that and say that is accurate, that you got to do that. So a similar type situation with the welfare, kind of like what Mike is saying. It's a tiered system. You say, okay, you've got 6 months, get your stuff in order. We're going to revisit this. We'll revisit this down the road, blah, blah, blah. Well, they revisit it down the road. And here's some of the, I think this is some of the fear that people run into when it's the fear of coming off of welfare or whatever it might be, is that they've went out and got a job, but maybe that job is not sufficient, right, to pay the bills and to buy groceries and to do the things that they need to do to survive. But they've got a job and they're working, and they can always get a promotion and they can build skills and get a better job, so that when they revisit it, they say, oh, okay, you've got a job. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut your benefits by, your job makes up 30%. We're going to cut your benefits by 10 or 20, right? And slowly wean people off rather than, oh, we're just going to cut ties right now.
Right. I tend to agree, because I think that, okay, how do I put this? Someone who has a minimum wage job, okay? We all know that a minimum wage job, if you work 40 hours a week, is going to provide a life. Is it the life that we all should want? No, I think what we need to start doing is we need to come up with some sort of a system that says this is the minimum. I mean, and there's no perfect way of doing this, but this is the minimum of quality of life that we as Americans want our brothers and sisters to have. And if that is $30,000, where the poverty level, where minimum wage is going to get you $25,000, I would have no problem if some people honestly just can't get a better job than that. And there's nothing wrong with that. If it comes down to me working or not working, I'm going to go be the best damn fry cook at McDonald's has ever seen. But that's just me.
But when you do that, you're not going to be a fry cook for very long, man.
That's right. But what I'm saying is, right. But let's say that for right now, to this person getting a minimum wage job still may not be enough to support the family. So welfare can still kick in and say, you're making, $22,000 a year with your job. We're going to kick in an extra $3,000 to get you to that $25,000. Now, when you get a raise, that's going to go away. Something like that, a tiered system to where I think that it's going to be easier to do it that way than hiking up the minimum wage, because there's a lot of people that are not going to allow that minimum wage to get up, because when the minimum wage goes up, guess what? Cost of living goes up as well. So you're not gaining anything from a minimum wage hike. Let's be honest with you. Like I said, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say also, you got to throw into the situation what's going on with the current situation. Yeah. So for our generation, getting out of school, getting a high school diploma, we can go find a job with somebody because it's pretty much based off the character and how we grew up, and the employers, how they grew up, right? Which is in that same boat. So they understand the value of, work value they're going to get by somebody, because our parents were hard workers and it kind of rubbed off on the kids. But now for those of us who have children, your child's paycheck is going to be based off of their education. There's going to be a lot of these companies that's going to turn around and say, yeah, you can come here and work, but you have to have at least an associate's degree. All right. Oh, we'll hire you out of high school, but if you don't get that associate's degree by this time period, we have to let you go. Right. So that's what it's coming down to when you turn around and you look at it. So if we're going to say that about the welfare system, we got to throw everything into that pot.
Absolutely. No,
So now the education system has to be updated seriously, all right? Because of the fact, I'm a firm believer, if you don't understand your past, right, you blinded moving forward.
Our schools should be palaces. Let's be honest.
So can we talk education for a second?
Yeah. Before you move on real quick, I do want to bring up what Sarge says. That's why you improve your skills and become more valuable employee. Start off an auto parts store for minimum wage, a store manager. Exactly. That's what we're talking about is everyone is going to have a time in their life where they're going to need a little help. And that's okay. Everyone deserves help. But what you do with that help is going to define who you are. And if we continue to hand out that help for basically forever, that's going to not force you to become the person that you need to become. If you're able to, like I said, if I had to before, and it's just a pride thing, I'd go get 3 jobs working as a fry cook or whatever, no matter what. And I'd be the best fry cook, or I'd be the best, whatever it is, because that's just how I am. That's my mind. My pride won't allow me to basically suck off of the big tree up there. I'm going to go make my own. And that's okay. There's some people aren't like that, but yeah, you're right. And that's why you have to improve yourself. You have to put yourself in a position to be successful. You have to be the best at whatever it is that you're doing. And I promise you, it's like what Mike and Clover both said. If you're in that position, you won't be in that position long, because they're gonna see, man, this person is really doing a great job. They're always early. They stay late. They're never doing anything wrong. They do the best job they possibly can. They're going to recognize that. And that's how you take those baby steps into climbing that quote unquote corporate ladder. That's just kind of my 2 cents real quick. Let's talk education for a few minutes, because I really want to get back to a freedom thing. So go ahead.
Well, look, to close out the welfare. I just want to say this. I mean, it's great that you had that mentality, but until you get into a certain situation, I mean, if you're injured or something, and maybe you can't. So for those people that are out there, if there's anybody listening to this, we're not saying, or at least I'm not saying, I'm not going to put words in anybody else's mouth. I'm not saying that you're a horrible individual if you're on welfare, because you pay into that system, and if you need it, by God, use it. But at the second that you don't need it, get off of it. Because, that's the thing. On education, here's my biggest thing with education, and you guys can take it and run with it however, or we can get back onto the freedom and liberty thing. But here's my thing with education. Somewhere along the way with education, we got concerned with test scores and the retention of useless knowledge. And that's got to end. There needs to be a whole revamp. I think Mike said it, of the educational system. We need to be identifying at the junior high level. We need to be identifying kids that have certain skill sets already, God-given skill sets, not running a football, spiking a volleyball, running track, dunking a basketball. I'm talking about valid skill sets that can turn into an actual career, and the probability be high of turning it into career. We need to be focusing on identifying those factors at the junior high level in kids, and then preparing them, saying, hey, is this something you're interested in? I've noticed you have a passion in robotics, computers, welding, carpentry work, electrical stuff, whatever it might be, right? And then say, are you interested in this? Going into the high school years, develop curriculum and programs in high school that get them journeyman's license and apprentice license, whatever it might be, by the time they graduate, right? That way they come out of high school with a vocation, with an actual tangible skill. And get rid of this everybody needs to go to college garbage, and everybody needs a sports scholarship mentality. Get away from all of this. Yes, I mean, for some, sure, but and I know, Trey, I know you deal with college recruitment and all that. You've done that a lot with that, right? But you don't disagree that that's not a lifelong thing. That you go to college. I mean, that's great that you go to college on, let's say, a football scholarship. It's great that you get drafted into the NFL if that rare lightning strike happens to happen. But you need a backup, because you never know. What if your first game, right?
You get hit, you break a leg, you do this, your first game in the NFL. That's it. You're over. What are you going to do if that's all you know? What are you going to do? So, if you go to college on that kind of thing, get your education in college. That way, if something happens, hey. But I think there needs to be a lot more emphasis on tangible skill, vocation, art. People demonize the arts a lot, right? That seems to be a leftist cause or a leftist issue. But there's some talented kids out there that could be. There's art in marketing, right, and advertising and all this other stuff.
Media is all
video games and software and you name it, right? It's digital, but it's still art. So
marketing,
absolutely, right. And I think that we need to get away from this whole test and filling kids' heads with knowledge so that they can simply pass a test, and actually going to the kids on an individual level and sitting down. Well, there's guidance counselors, whether there's individual teachers on that basis or whatever, and have some kind of criteria to go, what, little Johnny over here, he's really good at building birdhouses and stuff like that. Or, what's her name over here? She's really great at cooking blueberry muffins, or something like that, and identify these skills. And there you got a future baker and a future, contractor on your hands.
Yeah. Two things I want to touch on, and I'll bring Mike in. So my daughter is an intelligent girl. I mean, I literally did not see her do one piece of homework in 4 years of high school, literally. And she had good enough grades to where she never had to take semester exams for 4 years of high school. And this was in their eyes, this was, hey, we're going to do this so the people that make good grades aren't going to have to take these tests. She goes to college, and 3 or 4 weeks into her first semester as a freshman in college, she's got a midterm she's got to start studying for. She has absolutely no idea how to study for a midterm because she's never had to take a semester exam, nothing. So what they thought was going to be congratulations, you don't have to take your semester exams, actually ended up hurting her, because for 4 years, she never had to take an exam and she never had to study. So she goes to college and doesn't have any study skills, has no idea how to study, much less for a midterm or a semester exam, nothing. And I know that my daughter's high school is not the only one in America that does that. So yes, I do believe that we had to do that. Now, secondly, I will say this as well. The biggest problem that we face is, okay, how do I put this? Kids grow up sometimes with the unrealistic idea that they have to go to college. Even if a child wants to go to college, sometimes it's just not in the cards for them, either financially, whatever it is. So I agree with you 100%, Clover. College isn't for everybody, but we have to do something for our child and our children who are the future of our country, to set them up for some sort of a job out of high school. We need to start teaching these kids how to budget money, how to balance a checkbook, understand what adjustable percentage rates are on loans, understand what car rates, what credit card debt is. Sometimes people don't realize debt's a good thing if it's manageable. You're not going to be able to go and get credit at a bank or a loan if you don't have some sort of debt, but it has to be manageable. But I think that a lot of these life lessons aren't being taught to these kids in high school, whether they go to college or not. They should leave high school with the basic knowledge of how to survive in real life. And so I agree with you 100% on that. Before I go to Mike, Sarge, $1.90, good chat. It has been a great chat. We're not done yet. But I love conversations like this because we can all agree to disagree. Philo, same thing. He bought me another soda. Thanks for the conversation. That's what this is all about, is conversation. And we're not going to solve the world's problems, but disregarding them and just missing them isn't going to help either. So, Mike, education, I'm sure you've got some ideas of what you would like to see in education reform.
There is a lot when it comes to education and reform. All right. So When I used to live with my grandparents, I remember my grandmother had this talk with me, and it didn't resonate with me because you got to remember, when I was growing up, my family was trying to shield me as much as possible from racism. So when it actually hit me later on in my high school years and more once I joined the military, what was taught to me, it started really making sense. So one thing my grandmother used to tell me was, you have to work twice as hard versus somebody who doesn't look like you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So
right or wrong, that's the reality.
You still have to work twice as hard, right? So it didn't pan out for me until I was actually put in that situation, and then it started making sense.
But what I love that you did is you took that and it finally did click. Correct. And you realize, oh shit, this is real. And instead of falling back on saying it's against me, I don't have a chance, we're going back to welfare. You worked your ass off, made a career out of something, and look at you now. So I mean, I love the fact that you didn't take the low road. You took the high road of that and said, I get it now, but I'm going to make something of this. So go ahead. I'm sorry to introduce you.
But to finish off what you were saying, but that goes back to what my father said to me when I was younger as well, that my job is to do better than what my dad did. Right. I'm nowhere near what my dad did far as financial, but as far as being happy and doing what I want to do, I think I met that goal, but far as education goes, you know what I'm saying? How do we reform the system? You know what I'm saying? And how do we make it better? We really need to go ahead and talk about real current history versus the history from back when. For instance, when I was in school and I was told Christopher Columbus was the founder of America, instantly I started looking around the room like, hey, how is that even true if American Indians were already living here, right? How can you find something that's already, you know what I'm saying? Now,
yeah.
You probably was the first outsider that came across the land, but you didn't discover this place, right? And of course, I started asking questions because it didn't make sense to me,
Sure.
So we're contradicting ourselves when it comes to history, right? But then at the same time, the same conversations I had with my family growing up when it came to history, when I would go to school, I would start asking questions, and now it's not making sense because you're only telling one side of the parameter that you want to be known about to say, hey, okay, this is all you need to be successful in life. Is that fair or not? You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
the system needs to be updated. And I'm pretty sure everybody saw that Facebook video that was going around, a year or two ago, with this new way of doing math where you got to draw blocks and build a building to come back to get the answer of 4, right? It's ridiculous. Why would you change something that has already been in place, because the numbers are going to add up instead of making it harder for somebody. Now, that process might be easier for somebody, but not everybody. You know what I'm saying? So
it should be an option. You know what I mean, Mike?
It should have been an option.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with having multiple ways of teaching stuff because people learn in multiple ways, right? Some people are hands-on, for example. Some people, they get it from reading a book, so forth and so on. So apply all of it, not this whole idea of it's a catch-all and we're just going to do this for everybody. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So we're if you guys don't mind, and if you've got something else you got to do, I hear you. Mike and Clover, I understand. I can do this on my own if I have to, but we're going to run a little later. We're going to run a little bit late tonight because there is something that I do want to get back to the freedom thing, because this was text to me and emailed, and I had this conversation all the time. So I got a text today from someone that says that tonight on the show, I'd be interested in hearing you guys' thoughts on Trump saying a year in jail for burning the flag. So I'm going to take burning the flag, kneeling for the national anthem. All of these are under freedom of expression / freedom of speech and the First Amendment. So I want to address this because we're talking about freedom, and it disgusts me to see people burning the flag. It disgusts me for people kneeling for the national anthem if it's just to protest something that it is what it is, and it disgusts me to see that. But here's the thing, and Mike did the same thing. I'm not going to speak for Mike. He'll get his time to talk about this. I served in the United States Marine Corps, and I took an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Protect the Constitution. So as much as it disgusts me to see someone burning a flag, to take a knee, to do anything that is going to desecrate the flag or what the flag stands for, it's their right. And that is the beautiful thing about America. Now, we talk about the right of freedom of expression and freedom of speech, to that matter. You can say what you want if you can handle the repercussions of what you're saying or doing. Now, it might disgust me to see someone burn a flag. I'm going to read something that's one of my favorite movies of all times from The American President. And this is a quote from it. America isn't easy. America is advanced citizenship. You've got to want it bad because it's going to put up a fight. It's going to say, you want free speech? Let's see you acknowledge a man whose words make your blood boil, who's standing center stage and advocating at the top of his lungs that which you would spend a lifetime opposing at the top of yours. You want to claim that this is the land of the free? Then the symbol of our country cannot just be a flag. The symbol also has to be one of its citizens exercising his right to burn that flag in protest. Now show me that, defend me that, celebrate that in your classrooms. Then you can stand up and sing about the land of the free. Once again, I am not advocating to go burn the flag. What I will say is there are a lot of men and women in this country that have or are currently serving to protect who we are as a country. If you can handle what happens next, burn your flag. If you can handle what happens next, take a knee. I find it very interesting that Colin Kaepernick could not get a job in the NFL for 3 years. And now people get it. It's sad that it took 3 years and a terrible incident of a man being murdered by a police officer to get people to understand, maybe Cap was right this whole time. But for me, like I said, freedom comes with a price. Freedom is the most truest thing that America offers the rest of the world. We have to remember last year, there were young people in Hong Kong and in China waving the American flag. Why? They didn't want to be Americans. The American flag stands for freedom. They wanted to be free from an oppressive government. Our flag means something, but it can't be one of those things where you can't burn it. You have to be able to understand that if someone feels that they need to burn something to get their point across, burn a flag, then they have the right to burn it. But it doesn't mean that I won't beat your ass in the parking lot once you get done burning it. Mike, what say you about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom in general, and even though it might piss people off, what are your thoughts on freedom?
Freedom is just what it is, just like we already said. I don't have the right to push my beliefs on you, So say for instance, even though you're not, I know you're married to your wife, but let's just happen to say you were in a same-sex relationship. Now, if I was somebody who was totally against that, and I was like, man, that is so wrong, but I'm basing everything on how I was raised and how I view life through my lenses,
Right.
But at the same time, because I don't like it, that doesn't mean I have to force it down your throat.
Correct.
So it's one of those type things, whereas by being in the military, it's a double-edged sword. You know what I'm saying? People will say and do stuff against the country. But then when you turn around and you look at it from another perspective, you know, is it right or is it wrong? All right. So let's take the protests and the riots that are happening today. All right. I am totally against rioting, but for the reason it's happening right now, I'm in support of it. Once again, it's that double-edged sword, because once we've been having the same conversation since 1950. All right. So now, in order for me to get your attention, now I'm burning down buildings, I'm tearing up, you know, office spaces or whatever. Now, if that's going to get you to sit down and talk to me, now let's talk and let's come to a resolution. You know,
Absolutely.
but when it comes to the American flag, I mean, I was there one night when I saw somebody burning a flag, and literally it took 3 of my friends to hold me back.
Absolutely.
And I'm sitting there like, what in the world? What in the world? And then one of my friends was like, why are you so quick to jump on something or somebody who don't really give a crap about you? You know, and pretty much was talking about the nation, you know. And then my other friend said something that made sense to me. It didn't sit well with me, but it made sense. They paid for that piece of property. If they want to destroy it, they can destroy it. You know what I'm saying? And then right then and there, I was like, okay, you're right, in a sense, but it's not sitting well with me.
And I want people to understand that I'm not advocating flag burning. Okay, I'm not. Trust me, if I see someone burn a flag, it's not going to go well for you. Exactly. But what I'm talking about having the right to do it is you shouldn't be thrown in jail for burning a flag. Now, if someone wants to beat your ass, consequences, man, consequences. But
let's rephrase that. Yeah, let's rephrase that. If you burn the flag that's on public or federal property.
If you're going to burn your own flag, correct? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're going to take a flag down from no. If you're going to buy a flag and burn it, and that is your protest, I don't believe you should go to jail for that. Going back to the thing, Trump saying 1 year in jail for burning a flag. No, can't do that. Can't do that. You can't legislate someone's thoughts. You can't legislate someone's passion. You can't legislate we already have legislated expression. They're free. They're free to express themselves. But once again, doesn't mean that we can't take care of you in another way. You're just not going to be punished by the government for burning that flag. Before I get to Clover, there was something that I saw up here that I wanted to. Okay, Wayne Barnhart says Kaepernick is in the NFL because he knelt. It's because he isn't good enough. That's not true. And here's why I say that. 3 years, 30 or 32 teams in the NFL had 3 years to sign Colin Kaepernick. 2 years prior to him being basically run out of the NFL, he was a starting quarterback in a Super Bowl, an MVP candidate. This happens for 3 years. No one touches him. Now, 2 weeks ago, my beloved, I guess I can't say the San Diego Chargers anymore, but I'm a huge Charger fan. Went to a lot of games when I was stationed in Pendleton. The LA Chargers coach, all of a sudden now, we would be stupid not to have Colin Kaepernick come try out for a spot on our team. 5 or 6 other teams are saying we'd be stupid not to. Now, because he doesn't look like the guy that's going to rock the boat for your team, they're wanting to give him a chance. Why didn't you give him a chance 3 years ago? If you'd be stupid not to give him a chance to come be your quarterback today, why weren't you stupid enough to give him a chance 3 years ago? So, Wayne, I hear what you're saying. I disagree, and that's okay. We're allowed to disagree. We can agree to disagree. I think that he was a starting quarterback in the Super Bowl a year and a half prior to him being basically kicked out of the NFL, and for 3 years was not given a chance. And now, all of a sudden, teams are wanting to come in for a tryout.
Well, this is what I've always said about the whole Kaepernick situation and them putting him on the blacklist. Okay. They should have never put him on a blacklist, all right, because that action of doing that shot themselves in the foot. So, which is going to ask today, will the NFL issue him a public apology? Yes or no? I mean, we don't know that. You know what I'm saying?
I think we do know.
Yeah, we know the answer to that, but for freedom of speech reasons, we don't know. But at the same time, when you turn around and you look at it, back then they should have gave him the fair opportunity to let his merit of his character speak for his ability, instead of just purposely no.
Yeah. Let's see here. I like this. I feel that if you hate the country enough that you burn the flag, then you should be unable to collect government benefits like unemployment and welfare. I'm all for that. I agree with that, Mia. Absolutely. If you hate this country enough that you're going to burn the flag, then let's have a discussion on that. Let's see here. Clover, did I get you into the freedom discussion yet? Did I bring you into this? I don't think I did. Go ahead.
Not yet. So
go for it.
So we started off talking about the Constitution. So one thing that I think we have to recognize, because people do get hung up on this notion of the Constitution, and I'm not in any way saying that the Constitution is not vital and quite possibly one of the most important documents in all of history.
I agree.
But when you talk about the idea of freedom, it's not the Constitution. The idea of freedom comes from the Declaration, that the inalienable rights that we have granted by nature's God to include, but not limited to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So we have many, 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 many rights, far more than what's listed in the Bill of Rights that the government should leave alone. Many, many more. So with all of that freedom, then we have to realize what I said earlier. Liberty is the responsible exercise of freedom. And so is it responsible to kneel, to make your point, to protest? Is it responsible to kneel for the national anthem? Yeah, I think so. I think that's a responsible reaction, a responsible way to protest. Is it responsible to burn a flag? Well, assuming you're doing it out in a parking lot, you're doing it in a place that's safe, you're not doing it in a whiskey factory, then,
sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably a responsible way to protest. If you are standing on a public street corner with a bullhorn and you're not being vile and vulgar and all of this other stuff, and you're espousing your beliefs, or you're disgust with certain policies or the government, or you're holding up signs, right? Again, that aren't vile and vulgar and everything else, that's responsible. You're not blocking highways, that's responsible. However, again, liberty is the responsible exercise of freedom. When you flip somebody's car and burn it over, somebody else's car, when you throw rocks and bricks through people's windows, that is no longer the responsible exercise of freedom. So the former, I have absolutely no problem with. The latter, yes. And that's why we have laws, because when your exercise of freedom encroaches on somebody else's freedom, their freedom trumps yours at that point. It's just the way it is.
I agree. There was something that I wanted to put up, but I can't seem to find it. Okay, yeah. Excuse me. Isn't burning the flag a treasonous act? No. It's not a treasonous act. Treason is giving away state secrets to enemies, giving away something to someone that intends to use that information or do something to harm us. Burning the flag is not a treasonous act. It's protest. Now, once again, I'm not saying that I like it, but if we're going to be free and we want to talk about being Americans and having the right to free speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, then we have to understand that done the right way, like Clover and Micah both said, in a respectful way that's not breaking any laws, like grabbing a flag down from the Capitol building or at City Hall. If you go purchase it, it's your property. You can do with what you want to. If you're not breaking any laws or creating havoc or creating chaos by your protest, and your protest is kneeling, or if it's burning a flag,
I think we got to be careful about, and I'm not picking on you, but I think we got to be careful about saying, as long as you're not breaking laws, because as Mike pointed out down there with incarceration and the whole rabbit hole we went down before, there's some laws out there that are absolutely stupid. Okay.
No, I agree, but there's still, it doesn't mean there's still laws.
But there's the reason that there was ever laws in the first place, right, was to give recourse when somebody used their freedom to trample another person's freedom. So as long as you're not trampling somebody else's freedom, do what you want to do. It's that simple.
So I don't even want to know. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I'll address this. Now, when people destroy and desecrated fallen service members' graves and memorials, should there be harsh time for punishment? I think that there should be harsh time for desecrating anybody's grave. It doesn't matter if they're servicemen or women.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, man. That's memory of someone's father, grandfather, grandmother, sister, brother, child.
Certain
How about this? How about instead of, because that's a long, lengthy, hard working process a lot of times to clean that mess up.
Mm-hmm.
How about instead of, this harsh punishment, how about you just make them get out there and clean it up?
Yeah, certain states have laws against desecrating grave sites.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what I'm saying, but it's a law. You can't do it. But I'm not going to distinguish between a serviceman and a civilian. Yeah. You desecrate a grave.
That's still somebody's private property.
Right.
Have you ever purchased? Has anybody ever purchased a headstone? They ain't cheap.
They're not cheap. No, but that was my whole point. There's no. Why distinguish? Well, it's not. It's okay to desecrate this person because they didn't serve, but you desecrate this sailor over here. No, you don't desecrate anybody's grave.
Right.
My God, why? The reason why I bring that up is don't take any offense to this, Warsaw, but that was a terribly ignorant question. Okay, because it doesn't matter. The word service members should have never been put in that sentence. If you had said desecrated graves and memorials, should there be harsh time or punishment for that? Yes. But servicemen or women have nothing to do with it. It is all about desecrating the memory of a person who lived in America, whether a citizen or not. It is what it is. It is what it is. And like I said, we could go down these rabbit holes forever. I mean, we could talk for 3 hours. Like Mike said, he and I have had 4 to 5 hour conversations on a lot of this stuff over the years. God knows Clover and I have gone for 4 or 5 hours at 3 o'clock in the morning talking a lot of this. And that's why I wanted to do this, because I think that having a conversation with someone that doesn't agree with you on everything, if everyone just agreed, there'd be no conversation. It'd just be one happy-go-lucky fun time. Having not been able to disagree on every little thing is where it really comes in, because that's where the meat of it happens. Nothing can ever change if we always agree on everything.
Well,
so go ahead. Yeah.
Part of the idea of freedom and everything, also, you incorporate an element of free will to an extent. And if everybody thought the same, and we had this autonomy, this monotony throughout, the world, it would not only would it be boring, right? But you wouldn't truly have freedom, because you wouldn't have any free will. You wouldn't have any diversity of thought and opinion to spark new ideas, to spark technology. I mean, look at the times we're in now. And if it weren't for discussion and debate, and I'm proving that bastard wrong, right? In the scientific field or the technology field or the mechanical field, right? You get mad at or some great inventor got pissed off because somebody told him he couldn't do something, right? And what did he do? He went out, he made the world better.
That's right. That's right. Mike, there's I got a text, and I saw it mentioned earlier, and I don't know if you addressed it or not, but I got a text from someone that was kind of asking when we were talking about resources and all of that. What are some of the resources or organizations that you would like to see be utilized to help create change? It was a long time ago, but someone texted me, wanted to know what kind of organizations that you like that could help bring change to what we need to, because there is a lot of terrible ones out there, but good ones need recognition.
Yes, there are plenty of organizations out there that need help as far as getting their message and their word out. I don't know a lot of them. I only know a few. But when you look at it across the board, there are organizations that are in help and assistance with the Latino community. There are organizations that are in effect with helping the Asian community. And then you also have those same organizations that help the Black community. So, of course, we all know you got the NAACP. You do have the Black Lives Matter organization, but the name Black Lives Matter has been twisted so much that it's getting a bad rap.
I was going to ask you your opinion on that, because it's almost like what Black Lives Matter started out to be has now become, the name has almost become a cliche, and that's sad because it's kind of taken some of the clout of what the purpose and the movement was for. Do you agree with that? It's kind of a cliche at this point.
Yes and no, because when you having a conversation with somebody, and then if you was to actually say, Black Lives Matter, instantly they're not listening to what you're saying. They're thinking of a group of people who are doing whatever. But if I just sit right here and say, okay, why is all the cops killing all these people of color? Black Lives Matter, but I'm not saying it in association with the organization. I'm saying it in association with, okay, these are people who have families who are doing what's right. So whatever the situation may be, they're still people. All right. And then, of course, when people fire back at you, all lives matter. You know what I'm saying? So you're not even listening, and you don't even have compassion for the situation overall. And that's where the problem starts. You know what I'm saying? So we as a people, we have to understand and look at everything across the board. But to go back, now you got to get in with those grassroots organizations or the organizations that are helping a certain group of people, and if you can't physically speak, get with these organizations that can help that culture and community of people get that message out to show that support. So I mean, once again, regardless of what the problem is, it has to start with the people, and we got to do our own research and bring forth the message and reach out to these politicians to bring forth change.
Yeah, and we have to, as a people, we have to have the courage enough to bring up those issues, especially in places or times that may not be popular. More importantly, we have to be courageous enough to listen to someone who has a completely different idea of a subject than you do, the complete opposite, and not hate them just because they disagree with you. Whether or not we ever become friends on all that, whether we ever agree, the fact that as Americans, the more that we can listen to each other and truly listen, not just hear us, but truly listen to what each other are saying, and having conversations just like this, in your own hometowns, of having people that say, hey, for the most part, I think we agree on a lot more than what we disagree on. So if we agree on 90% of this stuff, we can start our conversation by agreeing on a lot of stuff, and then figure out a way to live with each other on the other stuff, because that's where the conversation happens, and that's where change happens. Is you have to be able and be willing to hear something that makes your blood boil, that you couldn't disagree with more, and say, I may not agree with you, but I respect the fact that you have the right to say it. And you know what? Maybe somewhere between my thoughts and your thoughts is a compromise to everybody's and move on. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I don't know. Clover, you're bringing up something in the side chat. Who was the pastor in that chat?
You remember the chat that, and I don't remember, it was one of your shows, I think, but there was a guy that come in and said that he was a pastor that like worked the streets and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, when we were talking about organizations and support stuff like that, one of the things that I think is again, I mean, whether you're a regular church goer or, overly religious or whatever, I think there's this huge role that the church can play. And I think that lifting some restrictions and maybe supporting some of those endeavors like that guy does. I don't know. I think that could help tremendously, because when you talk about grassroots, it doesn't get much more grassroots than, working the streets like that.
This is true. There's a lot of talk about Black Lives Matter being Marxists and all that. I don't know. I don't particularly. That's a whole other conversation. If you don't want to support Black Lives Matter, don't. If you do want to support Black Lives Matter or any organization for that matter, do it. And yes, money being contributed to these organizations counts as freedom of speech. Just saying. You can spend your money how you want with whoever you want. Don't tell me who not to, and don't tell me who to. And I promise I will do the same. I will not tell you how to spend your money or who to protect and who to fund and who to support. That's my choice. That's your choice. It is what it is. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Mike is going to, it's terrible, but do you happen to know what Black Lives Matter? You probably have a more opportunity of knowing more about it than I do, because I don't know anything about it being Marxist or money being funneled away from the cause. I don't know. Have you heard anything about this?
It's the same tactic that was used back in the day when they was talking about the Black Panthers. So when you turn around and you look at it, a lot of people today even still think the Black Panthers was a terroristic group, right? Well, we already knew the government was against what was going on because you're bringing people together on facts, right? And that's pretty much what Black Lives Matter is doing. So the same tactics that were used to destroy this organization, you know what I'm saying? I mean, really think about it. All you got to do is read. All you got to make a phone call, ask questions. You can figure it out yourself, But now,
Malcolm X, by the way, might change your mind on what you think about him. Yeah.
But now, in the downside of things, there is an organization that is using the Black Lives Matter moniker when it comes to money. So, like, if you're donating money to Black Lives Matter, the actual organization that is making change, Black Lives Matter, is not getting any of that money.
Because someone's utilizing it for personal gain.
Yeah, so they're doing whatever.
That happens all the time. I'm sure people
what people do, and they do this. I mean, look at the NRA is the same way and whatever. But what they'll do is they'll set up PACs, right? Yeah, and it'll be like the Black Lives Matter PAC. Well, that has nothing to do political.
Lives Matter,
Action Committee, is that what it's called or whatever? The PAC, PAC. But anyway, it has nothing to do with an organization. Nothing.
Yeah.
And so that's where you need to be vigilant and do your homework. And like Mike says, do a little bit of reading, make a phone call.
I live in Arkansas. We don't read too much here. That is what it is. Guys, this has been a 2-hour wonderful podcast. We could go on for another 2 hours. Thank you so much, everyone, even Warsaw Patriot out there. Thank you for your comments. Now, I like giving him a hard time. He's passionate, maybe misguided at times, but hey, passion is fun. I love passion out there. Thanks for all you that are watching or listening. If you made it 2 hours in a podcast form, God bless you. God bless you. I want to give Clover and Mike some time. Clover, I'm going to let you go first and kind of plug what's coming up with CloverTac and with other channels that you've got working on and all that stuff. Go ahead and tell people where to find you.
I'm not going to give away the Fire Friday gift still. So,
okay.
But it'll be a good one. So be looking for that to come out Friday. As far as, the whole other channels thing, I've been out in the chat, but I know people can't get to a link. So I can't drop a link because I'm not a mod, but,
where?
Maybe I can, to the new Fud Life channel. So, but if you go to YouTube and type Fud Life with a Y, you can find it. It's the only one. So it tries to reroute you to Good Life, and I don't know what Good Life is. I need to go check out that channel. But yeah, if you want to check that out, that's new, something kind of new. I'm trying to, I don't know, kind of cater to people that don't have a lot of time, and so I'm keeping everything really short. The audio podcasts are 15 minutes an episode. The produced content, or 15 minutes or less, I should say, an episode. And all the videos are less than 5 minutes. So that is the limit that I set for that channel. And hopefully you can get in, find some information that you need, whatever, get out. And it gives you more time to spend doing whatever you need to do. And maybe that is exercising your First Amendment right by protesting. But either way.
There you go. I did put the link to the Fud Life channel out there in the chat, so go check out the Fud Life channel. I do like the short content, short form content. 5 minutes or less in a video is great. You and I recorded a podcast for it, and the other day, in a 15-minute or less, and it was really weird, awesome. But like, just when you start getting to go, and you're like, time's up. So you better get your points across quickly. And I love it. I loved it. It was fun.
Yep.
Midnight Range out there says 2 hours. Goes have the rookie numbers, bro. Yeah, he's gone on for like 7 hours at times. So yeah, rookie numbers for 2 hours. It's a long time for me. An hour and a half is about normal, but I've gone over 2.5 hours before, but 2.5 hours, 2 hours is a long time for a podcast. So we'll see how it goes. Mike, it was awesome seeing you, my bud, my friend. Glad to have you back on the show here and there. And I know that you're going to be busy. I know you've got things in normal life, not just with the competitive shooting, but being a dad, the jiu-jitsu, the training, and everything that you're doing. Anytime that you're able to make it on Tuesdays, you always have an invitation. But it's great seeing you. Tell people what you're working on, where they can find you, and kind of some of the missions that you're working with right now.
All right. So for anybody who would like to follow my journey in competition shooting, I will ask everybody, please go to Instagram and look up @Munitions Weapons Tactical. Go to Facebook and look up M-W Tactical, and then on YouTube, just M-W Tactical as well. And give me a like, follow, subscribe. And I appreciate everybody that is following me and pursuing a dream of mine that I didn't think I had the ability to do until one day I went out and just said, I'm just going to do it. And I'm living it up right now. So staying busy doing that. But at the same time, there's a lot of traveling with this, a lot of talking with businesses and companies. I do want to give a shout out to the gun cleaners for their support and what they're doing for me as far as competition shooting. And like you said, I do need to get out there to Texas to hang out.
You missed it.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but
I know.
You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the year, and I've already had like a small conversation. I didn't go into detail with Rod, but at the end of the year, there's going to be an announcement concerning me with another company, along with the other companies that support and sponsor me as well.
There you go. Go check out Mike. Like, he's doing some. Are you still doing? I know that you were trying to raise money for the jiu-jitsu classes for the sheriff's deputies. I know that you put a couple people through. How's that going?
Yeah, I stopped that. I want to say it was March. It was either March 1st or May 1st, whenever it was the last day was. We ended up getting something about $2,000, I think it was, But the money was paid to the gym, and instead of putting new law enforcement officers into the fold, because just like anything else, when you do something, how people are, oh yeah, I want to do that, but they really not going to dedicate the time for it.
Yeah.
So what we did was we took all the money, gave it to the gym, and then had the gym divvy it up between the law enforcement officers who are already at the gym.
You're already doing it.
Yes. So it took a little bit of stress off of them financially, and it was a win-win situation overall.
Awesome. Yeah. Shout out to Kathy. Kathy was out there. Enrique, Sarge, Sarah. A lot of people out there having a wonderful discussion. And yes, even Warsaw Patriot, as misguided as a young man is. No, the conversation in the side chat was wonderful. I wish I could have been more involved, but I was watching it. Great conversation. Like I said, the conversation itself is what this is all about. And I say that a lot. It's all about the conversation. So thank you guys for hanging out with us for 2 hours. One quick thing that was brought to my attention, I got a text from Sarge, and I don't know if Clover or Mike that you have heard this. I got a text from Sarge that I guess Gunstreamer, as of June 30th, 2020, will be suspending gunstreamer.com.
Sucks.
I guess this really hurt them financially this time and all that. So they are suspending Gunstreamer as of June 30th, 2020. It doesn't say they're definitely going to come back. I think maybe they're going to try. But as of June 30th, Gunstreamer is no more. At least for the time being. I don't know, have you guys heard about that yet today?
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, that was my first time hearing that.
You would think. I kind of wonder if that was an email or what's going on, but yeah.
No, it's I don't know if this was an email or not. It was a press release.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. That, like I said, I mean, this whole shutdown and all of that is hurting a lot of people, and obviously. For Gunstreamer that was relying on the advertising dollars, and maybe they weren't getting those advertising dollars. Maybe they weren't able to do certain things with shutdowns and quarantines and all that. Regardless of what people think about Gunstreamer, if they've ever been over there or not, and even regardless of what I personally, the three of us, we know Austin, we know Paul, we know Ashley personally. We've met them. We've hung out with them. We've talked with them. They're friends of ours, not just acquaintances, but they're friends of ours. And the three of us in this room, and G-Webs and SARS, and a lot of the people 2 years ago at SHOT Show, I can speak for the three of us in this room because I know this all happened. We worked our asses off to try to get companies to help out Gunstreamer. And it happened. I'm not saying we're taking credit for it, but we know these people. Regardless of what happens, Gunstreamer did change to a media for the short amount of time that it was around. If it never comes back online, it showed at least a blueprint of what could happen down the road. It laid a blueprint. It laid a foundation for what quality two-way media platforms could do. So regardless of what happens with them, we want to say thank you to Austin and Ashley and Paul and everyone over at Gunstreamer. We hope this is just a short, brief timeout, and you'll be back. If not, thank you for all that you did, and you really did. You did leave your mark into the two-way media. So thank you so much, guys. You have anything that you want to say about Gunstreamer?
No, I mean,
yeah. Go ahead, Clover. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, I hope that it's a situation where, maybe they take a few months or a year, they revamp their idea and their attack plan, and come back better than ever. Maybe, never know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it was sad to hear that, and this is my first time hearing that. Considering the 30th is next week, isn't it? So,
it's a week from today.
Yeah. So that's very unfortunate, but maybe we need to come up with an idea to possibly help them stay in the fight a little bit longer or something. I don't know.
Maybe a telethon or or something, some kind of an a-thon. Yeah. We know enough big names in this community that could rally a lot of people and raise some money. Maybe that maybe that's something we need to talk about doing. But yeah, I literally found out from Sarge. Sarge had mentioned it out in the chat earlier, and I hadn't heard anything. He sent me a text with a screenshot. I guess it was from Instagram or something. And then G confirmed it and put a link out there earlier as well. So this was news to me. So like I said, I wish, if it is a permanent thing, obviously we wish Austin, Ashley, and Paul the best of luck, and hopefully we'll see him with some other endeavors down the road. But let's hope not. Let's hope that it's just a hiatus here for a little bit. But once again, thanks guys for watching live, especially the conversation was unbelievable. If you are watching this in replay or listening to podcasts, once again, God bless you. I wouldn't be able to do it myself, but it was a great conversation. G says Gunstreamer took the baton and moved it further that for 2A media than any other platform yet. So yeah, let's if there's anything that we can do, and maybe I need to reach out to Austin or someone. It might be past the point of stopping the hiatus at June 30th, but there might be something we can do to bring it back August 1st or something. So we'll reach out to them and see if there's something we can do. But thanks again for watching and listening in podcast form. Have your own conversations just like this in your hometown. Go to your local gun shop. Go to your church. Wherever it is that you go, have a conversation. Be willing to listen to someone who has an alternate point of view than you do. And by no means do we want to promote it, but let's understand what the rights of Americans are. Even though they might burn a flag, they might do something that drives you nuts. Understand that it's their right to do so. And it's our differences in this country that are going to make us a better country. So thank you so much. Thank you to Clover and for Mike for joining me as always. Thanks everyone out there that's continued to support. Thank you to all my patrons. Love you guys. We did have some new patrons that came aboard. You have the Vivian Historic Park. You had Georgia Trucker came back. We had several in the last week. So thank you to everyone out there. More importantly, guys, keep up the conversation in your own hometowns. Let's expect us to have an election in November, and if we are having an election, we need to make sure that we're protecting our rights and all that. So thank you once again for everyone. We will see you next week. Until next time, Semper Fi.